A man who knows your worth will never put you in a position to prove it. And yet, here you are, fighting for someone who isn't even fighting for you, chasing someone who barely looks back, begging for the bare minimum while he sits there, knowing that you'll always be around, no matter how little he gives. Stop. Press the like button, not for me, but for yourself. Let this be the moment you declare that you are done. Subscribe, because today is the day you wake up, the day you stop running in circles, the day you stop feeding the ego of a man who wouldn't even notice if you disappeared. Welcome back to the channel, my queens. You're here because you feel it. The exhaustion, the frustration, the gut-wrenching truth that deep down you already know you deserve better. But knowing isn't enough. You have to act. You have to stop hoping for the impossible. Stop romanticizing a man who has shown you time and time again that he does not care. Let's be brutally honest. Love, the love you've been sold, it's a lie. The movies, the books, the fairy tales, they told you to wait, to endure, to be patient with a man who just needs time. They told you that if you love him hard enough, if you prove yourself, if you suffer beautifully enough, one day he'll wake up and realize you were the one. But that day never comes, does it? Because the truth is, a man who wants to be with you will be with you. A man who values you will never make you question your place in his life. A man who loves you will not play games that leave you anxious, insecure, and constantly wondering what you did wrong. And yet, you keep giving, you keep texting, you keep making excuses. I once spoke to a woman who spent 6 years waiting for a man to love her the way she loved him. 6 years of unread messages, of waiting by the phone, of telling herself, maybe if I'm more patient, maybe if I love him harder, maybe if I become the perfect woman, he'll finally see my worth. Do you know when he finally saw her worth? When she stopped, when she walked away, when she disappeared and left him alone with the silence. Suddenly, he was everywhere, calling, texting, showing up. But by then, she was done. And guess what? The moment he saw she wasn't coming back, he crumbled. That's the power of absence. That's the power of not chasing. Right now, you are handing your power over to a man who would not cross the street for you. Every time you send that text, every time you check his social media, every time you wait for him, you are telling him, you can have me without effort. You are making yourself cheap. And you know what? Men don't value what's cheap. They value what they have to work for. The things that don't come easy, the things they fear losing. You have to become that woman, the one he fears losing, the one he regrets, the one who walked away and never looked back. So, say this with me. I choose me. Write it in the comments. Let the universe hear it. Let him feel it. And most importantly, let yourself believe it. Because in the next section, we're not just talking about walking away. We're talking about why disappearing is the most powerful thing you can do. We're talking about the regret, the panic, the moment he realizes he lost the best thing he ever had. Stay with me. It's time to take your power back. Number 1. Stop chasing a man who doesn't care. So, my dear, let's have a real conversation. One you might not want to hear but desperately need to. You've been lied to, not just by him, but by everyone. By movies that showed you a love that doesn't exist. By love songs that romanticized suffering. By friends, family, and society that told you, if you just hold on, if you just love him enough, he will change, he will see your worth. But tell me, how long have you been waiting? How many nights have you stared at your phone, waiting for a text that never came? How many times have you typed and erased messages, afraid of saying the wrong thing, afraid of pushing him away, as if he was ever really there? Here's the truth. If he wanted you, you would know. If he valued you, you wouldn't have to remind him you exist. A man who truly wants you doesn't make you question. He doesn't leave you in limbo. He doesn't disappear for days, only to reappear with weak excuses and empty words. He shows up, consistently, willingly, effortlessly. And yet, here you are, making excuses for him. You tell yourself, he's just busy. He's not good at expressing his feelings. He's been hurt before. He needs time. Stop it. A man in love moves mountains. A man who doesn't care won't even move his thumb to text you back. You know this. Deep down, you feel it. But you don't want to face it, because facing it hurts. I once read about a woman on a forum who spent 4 years waiting for a man to commit. 4 years of giving him everything, her time, her love, her patience, while he gave nothing. He strung her along, always keeping her just close enough to give her hope, but never close enough to truly be hers. Then, one day, she stopped. She didn't make a big announcement. She didn't beg for closure. She simply walked away. And guess what? The moment she stopped chasing, he came running. Suddenly, he had time. Suddenly, he was texting, calling, showing up. But by then, it was too late. Because she was gone. That's the moment he realized what he lost. And you know what? He never actually loved her. He just loved the control he had over her. Men don't chase love. They chase what they fear losing. But you, my dear, you've made yourself too available. You've made it too easy. Every time you reach out first, every time you check his social media, every time you say, maybe he's just busy, you are telling him, you can have me whenever you want. You are making yourself disposable, and that is why he doesn't care. Now, I know what you're thinking, but I love him. No, you don't. You love the idea of him. You love the potential you see, the man he could be, the fantasy you've built in your head. But the reality is a man who does not show up for you. So tell me, when was the last time you felt safe in this love? When was the last time you felt secure, cherished, at peace? Exactly. You're in love with hope, not with him. And hope? Hope can be a prison when it keeps you stuck in a place where you're not valued. Now, let's talk about the pain. Because yes, this hurts. Yes, walking away will hurt. You will feel like you're breaking. You will feel empty, lost, like a part of you has been ripped away. Because it has. Not because he was the love of your life, but because you built your world around someone who never built anything for you. But here's the thing about pain. It's temporary. The pain of walking away fades. The pain of staying, that's the kind of pain that lingers for years. The kind that eats away at your confidence, your self-respect, your happiness. Every day you spend chasing him is a day you lose for yourself. And what has he done to deserve it? What has he done to deserve you? This is the moment you stop. Right now. No more chasing. No more texting first. No more waiting. Because the moment you stop, that's the moment he realizes. Not when you cry. Not when you beg. Not when you send another desperate text. He realizes when you disappear. He realizes when the silence becomes louder than your presence ever was. And by the time he understands what he lost, you won't care anymore. Because you will have risen. You will have turned that pain into power. You will have walked away from the poison that was killing you, and you will have found yourself again. So, say this with me. I stop chasing. Write it in the comments. Let the universe hear it. Let him feel it. And most importantly, let yourself believe it. Because in the next section, we're not just talking about why you need to walk away. We're talking about why your silence will destroy his ego, and why disappearing will make him regret every single thing he took for granted. Stay with me. It's time to make him feel your absence. Number 2. Every text you send makes him value you less. So, my dear, let me ask you something. How many texts have you sent that went unanswered? How many times have you stared at your phone, waiting for a response that never came? And yet, you text him again, and again, and again, hoping that maybe this time he'll reply faster, that maybe this time he'll say something different, that maybe this time he'll finally see your worth. But every time you text first, every time you chase him, you are telling him one thing: you don't have to work for me. I'll always be here. And you know what happens when you make yourself too available? He stops valuing you. Men don't appreciate what they don't have to work for. Every text you send without him earning it lowers your worth in his eyes. Every time you double text, you look desperate. Every time you send a good morning when he hasn't even thought about you, you are making yourself easy. Every time you send a long paragraph after he has ignored you for hours or days, you are telling him, I don't respect myself enough to expect effort from you. And do you think he respects you for that? No, because men don't value what they don't have to earn. Think about the most expensive brands in the world. Do they beg people to buy? Do they chase customers down the street, offering discounts, making desperate offers? No. People chase them. People wait in line for them. People work to afford them. Be that woman. Be the one he has to chase. Be the one he has to wonder about. Be the one who makes him nervous when he realizes he hasn't heard from you in days. But right now, you are doing the opposite. You are texting him first. You are sending him reminders that you exist while he barely notices your absence. And do you know what that does? It feeds his ego. Because every message you send is a free boost to his pride. Every text is another way for him to say, she's still there, I still have control. You think you're being patient. You think you're showing him you care. But in reality, you are making yourself invisible. I once read about a woman who kept texting an emotionally unavailable man. She told herself, if I just give him time, if I just show him I care, he will open up. He will change. So she waited. She sent good morning texts. No response. She sent long messages, pouring her heart out. I just want to understand you. I just want us to work. And what did he do? Nothing. Days would pass, and she'd still text first. She told herself he was just busy, that he was going through something, that he'd come around. He never did. Until one day, she stopped texting. No more messages. No more checking if he was online. Nothing. And do you know what happened? Suddenly, he was interested. Suddenly, he was sending, I miss you texts. Suddenly, he wanted to know why she wasn't chasing anymore. Not because he had changed. Not because he suddenly loved her. But because he lost control. That's what men miss. The control, the attention, the validation. Not the love. Not you. And the moment you understand that, you win. Because this game only works if you play. Every time you send a message, you are keeping the game alive. You are keeping him comfortable. You are feeding his ego while starving your own self-worth. So, my dear, let me ask you again. Why are you texting a man who doesn't even think about you? Why are you sending love to someone who doesn't even send a simple, "How are you?" Why are you giving your attention away so freely to a man who hasn't earned it? Every time you text, you are telling him, "You don't have to do anything, and I will still be here." And the second he knows that, he stops valuing you. Do you want to know how to make him miss you? You stop texting. You go silent. Silence is powerful. Silence makes a man nervous, because suddenly he doesn't know what you're thinking. He doesn't know where you are, what you're doing, who you're talking to. And men hate losing control. So today you stop. No more double texting, no more checking in, no more giving your attention away for free. Let the silence do what words never could. Make him feel your absence. Let him sit in the emptiness he created. And when he realizes you're not chasing anymore, when he notices your silence, that's the moment he regrets everything. So say this with me: I go silent. Write it in the comments. Let the universe hear it. Let him feel it. And most importantly, let yourself believe it. Because in the next section, we're not just talking about silence. We're talking about disappearance. And trust me, my dear, that's when the real regret begins. Number 3, disappear and become his biggest regret. So, my dear, let's talk about disappearance. Not blocking for a few days and checking if he notices. Not playing some childish silent treatment game. I mean truly vanishing. Because men don't value what they don't have to work for. And right now, you are too accessible. He doesn't have to chase you. He doesn't have to fight for your attention. He doesn't have to earn your love. Because you've been there, always, always waiting, always texting, always hoping. And he knows it. That's why he takes his time. That's why he leaves you on read. That's why he treats you like an option, because you allow it. But what happens when you take yourself away? What happens when the comfort he once had disappears? Suddenly, he will feel it, the emptiness, the void, because your presence was his comfort, but your absence will be his nightmare. Right now, he has no fear of losing you, but the moment you vanish, the moment he wakes up and realizes he doesn't know where you are, what you're doing, who you're with, that's the moment he starts to panic. You think warning him will make him care? You think writing him a long message explaining your worth will make him value you? You think saying, "I'm done," will suddenly change him? No, you don't need to warn him. You don't need to explain your worth. You just walk away and let him feel the loss on his own. I read about a woman who did exactly this. She was in a toxic relationship for years, always forgiving, always waiting, always trying to fix things. One day, she decided enough was enough. But she didn't fight. She didn't argue. She didn't send an emotional breakup text. She just disappeared. No calls, no messages, no explanations, nothing. And you know what happened. At first he didn't notice. He thought she was playing games. He thought she would come back like she always did. Then a week passed. Then 2. Suddenly he was looking for her, texting, calling, asking friends about her, because for the first time he felt the loss. Months later, he was in her messages, crying, begging for another chance. But by then, she was gone. She had healed. She had moved on. And she realized that the love she was begging from him, she should have been giving to herself. This is the moment you understand your true power. Not in chasing, not in begging, not in waiting for him to suddenly wake up and love you. Your power is in your absence. Your silence will say everything your words never could. He won't realize what he had when you were there, but he will feel the emptiness when you leave. So, stop trying to be seen by someone who refuses to look at you. Stop explaining yourself to a man who already knows your worth, but doesn't care enough to value it. Let him feel what life is like without you. And no, this isn't about making him miss you so you can get him back. This is about making him realize that you were never his to take for granted in the first place. So today, you disappear. No more checking his social media. No more just one last text. No more keeping the door open. You block, you delete, you disappear. And when you do, he will regret you more in your absence than he ever valued you in your presence. So say this with me: I disappear. Write it in the comments. Let the universe hear it. Let him feel it. Because in the next section, we're talking about what happens when your silence starts to break him, when his ego begins to collapse under the weight of his own emptiness. Stay with me. It's time to make him feel what you felt. And trust me, my dear, he won't handle it well. Number 4. Silence will destroy his ego. So, my dear, let me tell you something you might not have realized yet. He doesn't miss you. He misses control over you. He doesn't miss your love. He misses the way you used to drop everything for him. He doesn't miss your kindness. He misses how easy it was to manipulate you. And right now, he still thinks you'll come back. Because you always do, don't you? You get angry, you say you're done, you try to walk away, but then he calls, he texts, he sends one lazy little "I miss you" message, and suddenly you're back, feeding his ego. Every time you respond, you're telling him, "I'm still here." And men like him, they feed on that. They thrive on knowing you're still checking for them, still hoping, still waiting, still ready to fall back into their arms the second they snap their fingers. But what happens when you take that away? What happens when you go silent? Suddenly, he's forced to face something he's been avoiding his entire life, himself. Because let me tell you the cold, hard truth. Men like him don't know who they are without attention. And you were his power supply. You were the one who kept his ego inflated. Every text, every "I miss you," every time you checked his social media, it all fed him. It kept him strong. It kept him believing he was in control. But the moment you unplug, his world goes dark. Because he never actually had power. He was stealing it from you. And now he has nothing. Silence is more powerful than any words you could ever say to him. You could write him a 10-page message about how much he hurt you. You could scream at him, cry, beg for closure. You could try to explain your worth, hoping that maybe, just maybe, he'll finally understand. But it won't work, because words don't matter to men like him. Only loss does. Men only truly value what they have to work for, what they have to chase, what they have to fear losing. And right now, he doesn't fear losing you. But the moment you stop answering, the moment your name stops popping up on his phone, the moment he realizes you're not playing games, that you're really, truly gone, that's when the panic sets in. And trust me, my dear, he will panic, because for the first time, he's losing something he can't replace. Oh, he'll try. He'll send you a "hey," just to see if you'll respond. If that doesn't work, he'll send a "miss you" text, maybe even throw in an old picture of you two, hoping to trigger your emotions. And when that doesn't work, he'll start reaching out through your friends, because he is not strong enough to handle silence. But you are. Because you are done feeding a man who only ever left you starving. So let me ask you this. Why would you go back to something that only hurt you? Why would you answer someone who never answered you when it mattered? Why would you keep giving your energy to someone who drained you every time? Every time you respond, you are fueling his ego. Let him starve. Let him feel what it's like to be ignored. Let him experience the same emptiness he left you with. Let him sit in the silence, feeling it claw at his mind, wondering why you aren't running back. And the best part, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to explain. You don't have to fight. You don't have to send some dramatic final text. You just stay silent. Because your silence, that will destroy him. So, the next time he reaches out, you don't respond. Watch how he panics. Watch how his messages start piling up. Watch how, suddenly, he has so much to say. But by then, you won't even care. So say this with me. I choose silence. Write it in the comments. Let the universe hear it. Let him feel it. Because in the next section, we're talking about what happens when his world finally starts falling apart without you. And trust me, my dear, he will not handle it well. Number 5. He will try to pull you back. Ignore him. So, my dear, now that you've gone silent, get ready. Because the moment he realizes he's losing you, he will come back. Not because he loves you. Not because he finally understands your worth. Not because he's changed, but because he lost control. And men like him, they don't handle losing control well. He's been comfortable, safe, knowing that no matter how badly he treated you, no matter how many times he ignored you, you would always be there. But now you're slipping away, and that's when he panics. Suddenly, his phone feels too quiet. His ego feels too small. He wonders why his usual tricks aren't working. He starts to miss the attention, the validation, the power you used to give him for free. And so, he tests you. It starts with a simple, "Hey." Then, if that doesn't work, an "I miss you" text. If you don't bite, he'll send a longer message, something emotional, something dramatic. He'll dig through old conversations, maybe even send a picture of the two of you saying, "Remember this? I was thinking about us today." But don't be fooled. He's not sorry. He just lost his favorite toy. This isn't regret. It's not love. It's panic. Because suddenly, he can't predict you. He doesn't know what you're thinking. He doesn't know if you've moved on, if you've met someone new, if you're finally seeing through his games. And nothing scares a man like him more than losing his hold on you. I once read about a woman who ignored her ex for 3 months. For years, she had been in the same cycle. He'd disappear. She'd wait. He'd come back with weak apologies. She'd take him back. But this time, she went silent. She didn't text him. She didn't check his social media. She focused on herself, started going out, making new friends, looking happier than she ever did when she was with him. And then, just like clockwork, he came back. A long, emotional message. "I've been thinking about us. I realize now how much I messed up. I'm ready to be better." She almost fell for it. Almost. But then she stopped and asked herself, where was this energy when I was crying over him? Where was this realization when I was begging for effort? Where was this love when I needed it? And just like that, she saw the truth. He didn't change. He never would. So she ignored him, deleted the message, blocked him. And today, she's happy, she's free. And him, He's still stuck in the same cycle, looking for another woman to manipulate, because that's what men like him do. They don't change, they just find new victims. So let me make this clear. The next time he reaches out, it is not because he loves you. It is not because he finally realizes your worth. It is not because he's a changed man. It's because he lost his control over you and he's desperate to get it back. So don't fall for his tricks. He will say anything to pull you back in. He will pretend to care. He will act like he's grown. He will mirror everything he knows you've always wanted him to be. But it's an illusion. He's not a changed man. He's just desperate for control again. And if you let him back in, he will do exactly what he's always done, take you for granted. So, what do you do when he reaches out? Delete, ignore, move forward, let him chase ghosts. Because the only thing worse than losing him once is letting him fool you twice. Say this with me: I do not go back. Write it in the comments. Let the universe hear it. Let him feel it. Because in the next section, we're talking about how to become the woman he can never have again. And trust me, my dear, that's when the real regret begins. Number 6. Become the woman he can never have again. So, my dear, now that you've ignored him, now that you've refused to play his games, now that you've cut him off and left him in the emptiness he created, it's time for the final step. It's time to become the woman he can never have again. Because let me tell you a truth that will change your life. The best revenge is not anger. The best revenge is not making him jealous. The best revenge is not proving anything to him. The best revenge is becoming untouchable, so happy, so successful, so radiant that he becomes irrelevant. You see, right now, he still thinks he has access to you. He still believes that somewhere deep down you're waiting for him, that you still care what he thinks, that if he tried hard enough, he could pull you back in. And that's the part that needs to change, because right now, he still thinks you're the same woman he left behind, the one who begged for him, the one who cried over him, the one who would have done anything to be chosen. But that woman, she's gone, and in her place, a woman he will regret losing for the rest of his life. Because, my dear, you were once a flower begging for water. Now, you're a storm he can't control, and that's what he will never be able to handle. He was comfortable knowing you were weak for him, but the moment he sees that you've outgrown him, that you've risen without him, that you don't need him anymore, that's the moment his world shatters. I read about a woman who did exactly this. She spent years in a toxic relationship, gave everything, got nothing in return. When he left, she was shattered, thought she'd never recover. But instead of chasing him, instead of waiting, instead of drowning in her pain, she reinvented herself. She hit the gym. She changed her style. She started a new hobby, surrounded herself with new people, focused on her goals. And when he came crawling back months later, acting like he had changed, do you know what she did? She laughed. Because by then, he wasn't even an option anymore. She had become too powerful to care. And him? Still stuck in the same cycle, still playing the same games, still chasing ghosts. So let me ask you, are you going to be the woman who waits for him, or are you going to be the woman he watches from a distance, knowing he will never have another chance? Because, my dear, the past has nothing new to say to you. Stop looking back. Stop checking his social media. Stop wondering if he thinks about you. He does, but that's not your problem anymore. Your problem becoming a woman so unshakable, so happy, so powerful, that you don't even notice if he's watching. That's the moment he will regret you the most. Not when you cry, not when you beg, but when you rise so high that he can't even reach you. So work on you. Glow up, level up, make him regret ever losing you, not through anger, but through success. And by the time he realizes what he lost, you'll be too busy living your best life to care. Say this with me: I become untouchable. Write it in the comments. Let the universe hear it. Let him feel it. Because in the next section, we're talking about what happens when you rise so high that even the memory of him fades into nothing. And trust me, my dear, that's when you win. Number 7. When you rise, he falls. So, my dear, let me tell you something that will set you free. Men don't feel regret when you cry. They don't feel regret when you beg. They don't even feel regret when you tell them you're done. Men feel regret in silence. They feel regret when they realize you're truly gone. Not just physically, emotionally, mentally, energetically. When you stop thinking about him. When you stop checking for him. When you stop hoping he'll change. That's when it hits him. Because he never thought you would actually leave. He thought you would always be there, waiting in the background, hoping for another chance, ready to answer the moment he reached out. But now he sees you thriving. Now he sees you glowing. Now he sees you living the life he never thought you could have without him. And it eats him alive. Because he had you when you were weak. But now you are untouchable. And my dear, he will look at your new life like a starving man staring at a feast he can never touch. This is how men work. They don't realize what they had when they had it. They only realize when it's too late. Because men are wired to chase, to conquer, to feel powerful. And when you were chasing him, when you were begging for him, you were giving him that power for free. But now that you've taken it away, now that he sees you rising, growing, evolving without him, he falls. Because now he has to face the one thing he was never ready for: regret. And let me be clear, my dear, this is his burden to carry, not yours. Because you were never the problem. He was. It was never that you weren't good enough. It was never that you didn't love him enough. It was never that you needed to try harder, be more patient, give more chances. He was just incapable of valuing something rare while he had it. And now he has to live with losing you. He will stalk your social media. He will ask about you through mutual friends. He will watch from the sidelines as another man treats you the way he never did. And trust me, that will hurt him more than anything you could ever say. Because while he was busy playing games, he never thought he'd lose you for real. But now he has. And you? You don't even care anymore. You don't get revenge by making him jealous. You don't get revenge by playing games. You get revenge by being so at peace that his existence no longer affects you. By being so happy that you don't even notice if he's watching. By becoming so successful, so radiant, so unstoppable that the thought of going back to him makes you laugh. So, what do you do now? You smile, you move forward, and you never look back. Let him drown in his regrets. Because, my dear, you won. Say this with me: I rise, he falls. Write it in the comments. Let the universe hear it. Let him feel it. Because in the next section, we're talking about what happens when you finally become untouchable. And trust me, my dear, that's when you never lose again. Number 8. Your final message to him without saying a word. So, my dear, let me tell you the most powerful truth of all. You don't need to say a single word. Not to him, not to his friends, not to the version of yourself that still thinks she needs closure, because the last thing you ever say to him is silence. That's how you win. Not by sending a long message explaining your worth, not by asking him why he did what he did, not by waiting for an apology that will never come. Just silence. Because silence is a mirror. And when you stop talking, stop reacting, stop existing in his world, he is forced to face something he has been running from his entire life. The truth. The truth that he lost something rare. The truth that he took you for granted. The truth that he thought you would always be there, until you weren't. And your absence will be the loudest thing he ever hears. Because let's be real, men don't listen when you talk. They listen when you disappear. They listen when their phone stops lighting up with your name. They listen when they don't get to hear your voice anymore. They listen when they realize you are no longer checking for them, thinking about them, hoping for them. That's when the regret sets in. I read about a woman who did exactly this. She was in love with a man who never chose her. He kept her waiting, feeding her crumbs of attention, always keeping her at arm's length. She fought for him, begged for him, made excuses for him. And then one day, she just stopped. No warning, no argument, no goodbye text. She just vanished. At first, he didn't care. Thought she was playing games, thought she would come back. But weeks passed, then months, and suddenly, he was the one looking for her, texting, calling, even showing up places he thought she'd be. But by then, she had already forgotten him. She had moved on. He no longer existed in her world. And that was the moment he truly lost her. Not when she cried, not when she begged, but when she made peace with never hearing from him again. So let me ask you, why are you still holding on? Why are you waiting for an apology that won't change anything? Why are you hoping for closure when the only thing you need is to walk away? Why are you giving him space in your mind when he never gave you space in his heart? Let me be clear. You don't need closure. You don't need an apology. You don't need him. You know what you need? Yourself. You need to rise. You need to rebuild. You need to heal in silence and let him regret. Because when you do, he will feel it. He will feel it when he sees you glowing, happy, untouchable. He will feel it when he realizes he can never reach you again. He will feel it when he understands that he is now just another name you don't even think about. And by then, you won't even care. So say this with me. I leave in silence. Write it in the comments. Let the universe hear it. Let him feel it. Because this isn't just about him anymore. This is about you. And from this moment forward, you never lose again. And that, my dear, is how you win. Not through words, not through begging, but through silence, growth, and becoming untouchable. He will regret, but by then, you won't care. If this spoke to you, subscribe, share, and let's keep rising together. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning.